Ni hao. This is the fourth part of a day in the life of a Cambridge academic professor, Alan Macfarlane, myself. And we've now got to the middle of the afternoon. And now I'm preparing for a book launch. When I retired, I'd written and published with reputable publishers something like 15 or 20 books. But I had many more books in my mind and in drafts and so on. So I wanted to go on publishing books, but it's difficult when you retire as an academic because your usual publishers are less interested in you once you've retired. And so for that reason and others, with my colleague Zilan, we decided to set up about over 10 years ago a small publishing house called Cam Rivers Publishing. Just opposite King's is the headquarters, and it specializes in publishing a bridge of books between Cambridge and the West and China. So it has an equal presence or larger presence in China. And so the mission of Cam Rivers Publishing is to increase understanding between the East and the West through publishing, and more recently through social media channels like Xiaohongshu and Bilibili and so on. So Cam Rivers Publishing has flourished, and we have well over 100 books we've published. Chinese poets and others have published with us in English, and we've published a number of university teachers and professors from Cambridge and elsewhere, including myself, in China. And it's quite significant and successful in a quiet and subdued way. We don't publish much in politics or contentious subjects. And when we publish an interesting book, we will try and arrange a book launch. And on this occasion, we've arranged a book launch for a book called Wonder and Art, which the gentleman here is, I know him as Tim, or Tim Yip, and he is pretty well known in China and the world because he won an Oscar for designing and inspiring the famous Chinese film with Ang Lee, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and he's been behind many artworks and exhibitions and operas, and recently a new series of films called The Birth of the Gods. And Tim and I got to know each other about 3 years ago, and I really liked him. I sensed there was something very special about him the moment I met him. He seemed to me to be like a kind of reincarnate Taoist priest or shaman from thousands of years ago. He seemed to see things that I couldn't see, and unlike most such people, he could actually convert that into artwork so I could see them. So the mystery of his famous artworks of various kinds is that he is seeing the Chinese past and its magic, and then turning it into film or exhibitions or whatever. And so we really hit it off. He's a very gentle, thoughtful, interesting man. And so we started a dialogue. I interviewed him about his life, and then we met 5 or 6 times for in-depth conversations about wonder and art. he explained to me something about how Chinese philosophy works, Buddhism, Taoism, and how Chinese aesthetics operates. And I asked him questions about that, and then he asked me questions about anthropology and Western systems. And although I found it stretched my abilities, I don't know a huge amount about art, or certainly about Oriental aesthetics and philosophies. So he stretched my mind, but I found it really exciting and interesting, and he seemed to find exploring fields like anthropology, which he didn't know anything about much, invigorating. So we formed a bridge of attempting to understand each other's civilization. And this is what my dialogues, and this is one of 4 or 5 that I've done. These dialogues are to try and get inside the mind of the other. I found that in my work as an anthropologist, the best way to study another culture is obviously to go there and to experience it and eat the food and see the scenery and watch people doing things. But if you want to get inside its inner thought system, its cosmologies and its assumptions and its inner life, then there's only really one way, which is to make friends, make deep friends with someone within that culture and spend quality time with them, build up trust and friendship, and then have, in our case, recorded conversations, filmed conversations, which are then turned into a dialogue book. So I've done this with a famous Chinese educationist, Professor Zhu. I've done it with Tim. I've done it with a famous diplomat and a famous politician, Sir Vince Cable. So the book launch starts off. We go to the rather beautiful Provost's Lodge. The Provost is the head of the King's College, and we go to her private residence, which is set up for entertaining important people, ambassadors and politicians and others. So it has a very elegant, large drawing room looking out onto a very beautiful Victorian garden, and a stately dining room with a long table and portraits, and the whole thing has the elegance of the 150 years ago. It's a place where all the Bloomsbury group, people like E.M. Forster and Keynes and Lowes Dickinson and Roger Fry and I suppose Turing and others would have been and sat and had meetings and drank wine. So it has a timeless elegance about it, out of space and time. So in this oasis of peace and calm beside the garden, looking up towards Zhu Zhumao's, the room that he spent his last term in, which is just on the edge of the garden, we talk, Tim and I. We each give a short presentation. He shows a film of some of his artwork in America and London and Beijing, and then I give a talk about how we wrote the book and what I learnt from Tim, and then the audience join in and we have some wine. One of the particular features of that occasion was that I noticed there was a young Chinese girl sitting on the sofa near where I was talking, and I went over, and she was wearing a very beautiful Chinese traditional or half traditional costume. So I complimented her on this, and we got talking, and I realized she was a very intelligent and interesting young lady. So I said, well, how about coming and having a chat sometime? And that's the sort of thing that happens in Cambridge. It's special because the people you meet very often have whole worlds of experience and interest that broaden your own. Of course, this is true anywhere. Even if you were stopped in a London underground and started to talk to people, you discover all sorts of wonderful worlds. But in Cambridge, the worlds that I'm particularly interested in, which is the worlds of thought and research and so on, you're very likely on any occasion to meet someone, and out of that it's very possible that a friendship will emerge. And on this particular occasion, this friendship with this young lady who we met has flourished. We've met a number of times, and we're currently writing a book together with my wife, Sarah. So this book launch was a great success, I think, and everyone enjoyed it. And it's one of many, and it's part of this attempt at which one has as an academic. It's not enough just to think and to research. You then have to write or produce films or whatever form of communication you use, and then you have to reach a wider public. And obviously publishing and setting up a publishing house is one of the ways in which you do that and reach a wider public. So that's the fourth part of my day.